And hello, all of you wonderful car lovers out there, and welcome to the C&C Auto Show, and I am Aaron Clement.
I'm John Ryan.
And our goal is to give you some good information that will make your car, truck, or SUV safer, make it more dependable, and to make it last longer for less money and a lot less hassle. We want to say thank you to all of you, each and every one of you that tuned in and logged in, and we are here to take your phone calls. And that number is 706-863-5800. You can also watch us live on Facebook. You can watch us have little Nerf gun fights and all kind of other things that we do. You can do that live Saturday mornings, 8:05 to 10. And you can also ask your question at ccautoshow@gmail.com anytime. You can learn more about your car or this show, and you can also find a good shop, all that at ccautoshow.com. We want to welcome WBQO 93.7 FM in Brunswick, Georgia. And we thank all of you for jumping in and riding with us. C&C Auto Show. And this show is brought to you in part by Napa Heating and Cooling Systems and NGK Spark Plugs. And we have a lot of good stuff to talk about. This is a fantastic time of year for road trips.
Yeah, it is.
I hope everyone out there that can is planning on a road trip or have a road trip planned right now.
For sure.
And I know I have one already set up.
Where are you going? Where are you going?
Nashville.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
Going
Good
to Nashville. And we do have
this
one
hour of the
plan made to go to the beach also.
Right,
so
cool.
we'll be doing a couple of nice little road trips on there. Now, of course, there's a lot of things that can be done during a road trip that would make the road trip a lot better and more enjoyable. And that's what we plan to talk about today during the show. As we answer questions and do all the other things that we're doing,
like taking some calls, right?
Yeah, we'll also be answering the questions on the calls as they come in, but also we'll be giving those wonderful tips that may save you some time, may save you some money, but also may make your trip more enjoyable as you go places. We always like to start the show out with a tech tip quiz. And if you are a winner and you have the correct answer, you'll win a hat or a coffee mug and the I Answered the Tech Tip Quiz Show golf shirt. And actually this question was not answered last week.
Right.
That don't happen very often because we got some very, very sharp listeners. We have questions that I give that I would swear no one would ever be able to answer, and I'll be doggone if sometime first call somebody gets it.
Huh?
But here it is. Stacy owns a 2006 Chrysler Town & Country van, and last year she had a very small gas leak on her van, and it caused her swimming pool pump to go bad this year. How did it happen? So if you know the answer to that, give us a call. And are you ready to go to the phone calls?
Yeah, let's go over to Leo.
Fantastic. Hello, Leo, and welcome to the C&C Auto Show.
Good morning. I'm going to start right off, not waste your time. I got a 2010 Town & Country Chrysler that I bought in June, secondhand. Put 10,000 miles on it. What it does is I'll be driving along and the cluster lights come on, and then they'll go off, and they'll come on and go off. It may do it. I've driven 300 miles and it does it. The other day, I went to Cincinnati. It never did it. Came all the way back from Cincinnati when I got to the Georgia state line. That came on and went off again. And then when I got to my house in Deering, I slowed down. This is the first time it did this. It shut off completely, everything, lights, motor, everything.
Leo, with you doing all that driving, there's no chance that you was falling asleep, were you?
No. I got no. Well, all that driving, most of it, I had the wife in the car.
Oh,
she wouldn't let me fall asleep.
Okay.
And one of the things I do, I drive off the road a little bit and do the brr, and I tell it's an airplane.
Oh, okay.
But anyway, that's the first time it shut down on me. And then yesterday, it started acting up again. And, one of the things is that my speedometer will drop to 0, but my RPM stay whatever speed I'm driving at, 1,500, 1,700, 2,000. But yesterday, I went to the stop sign by the house, turned, started up the road, and it started doing it again with the cluster lights coming on, and dinging at me. but I noticed that my transmission would not come out of first gear. I pulled over, put it in park, turned the motor off, started it back up, no problem. I drove to Augusta and back yesterday, and it never did it again. It doesn't do it at any particular time, type of weather, phase of moon, or whatever. It just, it might be 300 miles. Last, I drove 1,200 miles, and then it decided to do it again. I put 10,000 miles since June on the vehicle. So,
wow, you've been doing some driving.
For sure.
Yes, sir.
Leo, when you said cluster lights, do you mean all the trouble lights, like the check engine light, traction light, and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, like when you first turn your key on, all them lights come on your cluster.
That's like a bulb check, yeah. Okay. There's two things that really could cause that. One being a communication issue between all the modules. When, of course, there's a network series that allows all the modules to talk to each other to see, like say you roll down the window. Well, one module would be the request, and the next would be, of course, the what actually does it. So all those modules talk to each other, and if they lose communication, something like what you're describing could definitely happen. The other thing would be is a voltage drop. Chrysler, especially those town and countries, a lot of the positive battery cables and the negative cable where it bolts to the transmission are kind of notorious for a lot of corrosion buildup. Have you taken a look at that just to kind of see if there's corrosion or?
Yeah, no, it's clean.
Okay,
it's clean, and I brought it to one of the local shops.
Mm-hmm.
He checked the alternator, the battery, and those things, and they were doing what they were supposed to be doing.
And Leo, John Ryan didn't leave me any meat on the bones to talk about it all. He grabbed both of mine that I was going to say. One thing that I will mention is when John Ryan mentioned communication problems, two things can cause communication problems. Is one has to do with an actual bad module or bad computer item around the vehicle. But also another thing that many times can repair something like that is just a bad connection.
Right.
I've seen some cases to where you'll think that a part is bad, but you disconnect it and there's some contact spray you can spray, or sometimes just sticking it back together.
Yeah.
It may give it the connection that it needs.
Or if somebody may have put an alternator on it and the power wire is slightly loose and it's causing a voltage drop.
Yeah. I believe I would. It sounds like you got a technician that you work with. I believe I would consider asking that person to go around and do a very good visual check, and of course check for trouble codes in the computer and all that.
Yeah.
But then, if nothing shows up, disconnect some of the like modules that may be pertinent to what that does, having to do with the instrument cluster,
right,
and all of those items, and then hook them back and see if the problem goes away.
And then, too, it would be really good to do a full DTC scan of the vehicle, because a lot of times it'll set communication faults in, the module that, of course, lost communication. Typically, there'd be a trouble code that would lead a technician in at least some sort of diagnostic trouble tree as to what's going on. For instance, there might be a code in there, instrument panel over voltage or under voltage, and then, of course, they could, do some pin checking there and find out what's going on.
And Leo, the only other thing I can think of is you've been playing that airplane trick on your wife so many times, and doing that, it's done vibrated something loose in there.
Could have.
No, I never do it that often. She slapped me back the head.
All righty.
But anyway, one more thing was I went online and looked up this type of problem, and it showed it a lot. And they went everything from changing EGR valve, the key fob, and the wind, and all of that other stuff. Open.
Yeah, don't listen to them. Listen to what we mentioned. Ours makes more sense.
Okay. I appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
I'll open on Monday.
Thank you very much for the call. We do appreciate it. And it is time to take a break, but we will have more coming up very soon. More about travel tips, more about your road trips, and how you can enjoy a stress-free trip. That and more as soon as we return on the C&C Auto Show.
Mustang Sally.
And we want to welcome you back to the C&C Auto Show. We'll give a few more travel trips, plus we'll be taking phone calls at 706-863-5800. That's Saturday mornings, 8:05 to 10. You give us a call, and we will give you an answer. I did I did get an email. No, it was an email earlier this week, and the person was asking me about an AC question. He was in Florida,
Yeah.
near the Orlando area, I believe, and he mentioned that his AC compressor was not coming on, and he was getting ready to take it to a repair facility. And I mentioned several things to do it, including checking the AC relay. And I mentioned to him about swapping a relay.
Yeah.
He wrote back, and he was wild and crazy happy. He said that made his AC work.
Oh, wow. What kind of car was it? Honda?
Little Honda Accord. No, it was a Honda minivan.
Oh, okay. Odyssey.
Yeah, Odyssey. And he was just really thrilled. Okay, we will be giving you some fantastic tips on having to do with travel type stuff, along with answering those phone calls. With a little prep, you can leave the road stress at home and enjoy a getaway with some good friends. And before I mention the tip, I'll mention that this segment's brought to you by Napa Heating and Cooling Systems. And before you take those spring road trips, it's a good idea to have those hoses and belts checked. And if your hoses or belts need to be replaced, I would recommend Napa parts. And they are great and work good, got a great warranty, and last a long time. Okay, now, in case of an emergency, I always recommend keeping a cell phone nearby. Now, that sounds like a very simple thing to say, that always keep your cell phone nearby. Have any roadside service that you may have in your phone.
Yeah.
But from time to time, someone takes off on a trip and they get out a long ways away from where they were.
Yeah.
And discover that they have no charger for their phone.
Yeah. That's a bad situation.
And that would be the situation come up. So it's also a good idea to keep a charger, an extra charger, inside your glove box.
Right.
And then that way, if something comes up and you do forget to carry your charger, you can reach in and grab another one and plug it in, and you will have access to all of your emergency type contacts that you may need to call.
Yeah.
You want to have, and again, if you have like AAA or some other roadside assistance, make sure you have those numbers in a place where you'll know what to recall on the phone to be able to get that out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or even one of those the little storage or battery storage devices that charge your phone.
Mm-hmm.
Auxiliary
Exactly.
things, those work good too.
And I will mention one other tip, a tip that it kind of goes without saying that we always recommend, because we do that on so many other shows, is it is a really good idea to have all your car inspected. And sometimes people like to do that themselves, which is absolutely fine. Just check your fluid levels and look at your tires real close, do a good walk around, and make sure in all your lights and mirrors and all that's working before you hit the road.
Right.
If you don't do it yourself, then it's a good idea to take it somewhere and let them do the inspection. You ready to go to the calls?
I am. Let's go over to Peggy, Aaron.
Let's do it. Peggy, welcome to the C&C Auto Show, and what can we help you with?
Okay, my daughter has a 2015 Suburban XLT, has about 80,000 miles on it. And there's a problem with the screen, the screen where you put navigation and everything in.
Yes. Uh-huh.
What it does is it has the bars across the bottom, and then all of a sudden it'll get those bars all the way over the screen.
Mm-hmm.
You can't do anything with it. It just kind of goes crazy. And then she says a voice comes on that says, say an audio command, and it repeats it. Mm-hmm. One time even the lift gate opened while they were driving. She took it, she gets the oil change near her home at a small little Shell station.
Mm-hmm.
And they told her he drove it, and it started happening to him. And he said, I didn't touch anything. She said, I know, that's what happened.
Uh-huh.
But he researched it and said there was a bulletin stating something about a screen working by itself and a voice by itself,
Right.
and that it needed a software update. So she made an appointment and took it to a dealer in Leesburg, Virginia. The service guy came out. He said he'd never heard anything like that. Mm-hmm. He didn't put it on the computer. He didn't do anything except say, do you want to sit here and wait for a couple hours so we can go through things? It's going to cost you a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why we're calling you.
Wow, that was very helpful,
Yeah, it
wasn't
didn't sound like he didn't want to look at it, did he?
He probably didn't believe
It sounds
you.
like they have so much business they don't care.
Yeah.
Maybe so. Peggy, I've actually heard of that particular problem. Also with the GMCs, basically everything on that same type body line, chassis line. Just like you said, the screen kind of goes blank. It's almost like a computer that freezes. It just won't respond to anything.
Exactly.
Yeah, I hadn't heard of the voice thing coming up. What the bulletin was a software update for the, I guess, is it called proximity range or whatever, of the heat sink for, all the touch buttons or the screen, that, of course, it's touch screen. So I did hear of that some time ago. It was actually a fairly new one we had for a body shop, and it was very similar. They said that the screen was going kind of haywire, and it was a software update, and it basically, just like a Windows computer, has several different updates that addresses several different little bugs, and that did take care of it. I mean, it sounds like the biggest thing is you need to find somebody that can actually do that wherever she's located. Because, of course, what they would do is actually put a scan tool in there and pull what's called the calibration ID out of that module. And, of course, there's a website they go to, and it says, if it has this calibration ID, there's 3 more updates due, or that might be the current one or something like that. And then, of course, they reflash it through, there's a web-based program that, of course, downloads the new file in there, and, of course, it kind of updates the operating system. So definitely have heard of that issue. I think the gentleman that looked at it, or did some research, did find the issue. And like I said, it sounds like the proper fix would be the update. So.
Yeah, and what's good about that is, let's say you have it done. If for some odd reason it does not repair the problem, you hadn't wasted any money, because it's one of those type things that you would want to have done anyway, even if it turns out to be something else. So, yeah, that definitely would be a good move to have the update run. And I believe I would recommend, if you whatever area that she takes it to, or whoever she takes it to, make sure that they know about the bulletin and would take the time. She may even want to print it out just to be on the safe side and say, I'm showing this bulletin and this looks like what my vehicle's doing. And it may make it to where they won't charge her diagnostic time, but just charge for the
actual
update
process of it.
Well, let me ask you this: is it a way that she can go on and find that herself on her computer, or does she have to?
She may be able.
Friends would bring their vehicles to our house for me to repair them.
She may
That
be able
continued all the
to
way
find
through
the
high school.
bulletin
I was the
itself.
school's Mr.
Sorry, I don't know where that was coming from, Peggy. She may be able to find the bulletin herself and the bulletin number. However, she wouldn't be able to pull the flash file that's actually installed in the car, because, of course, you would need some scan tool equipment. But she should be able to do some research and find that bulletin. If you email me or Aaron at the shop, of course, our information's on our website. We can definitely look into that for you.
I think there's something like gm.com bulletins, but it would be much better. I'd recommend her having a real good relationship with a good shop anyway. What I would recommend doing after we get this bulletin, we're glad to get this bulletin for you, but it wouldn't hurt for her to go into Napa autocare.com and find a shop.
Oh, okay, that's a great idea.
Okay.
So give me the if we want to. What is your? I guess in order to get your shop information, what is that? Did you say?
Yeah, just go to C&C Auto Show at C&C Auto Show at gmail.com.
Okay, that's great.
Okay.
Thank you so much. I'm going to pass
Peggy.
this on. Unfortunately, they live outside of the Washington, D.C. area, where I'm sure the dealers, they have so much business, they don't really seem to care if they service you or not.
Will you tell her to give us a call? We'll help her
we
over the phone.
appreciate it.
Okay.
All right, Aaron. It's
Okay.
all time
Thank you.
for a break.
Okay, yeah, time to take a real quick break. We'll be right back. And we welcome you back to the C&C Auto Show. If you have a question about your car, truck, or SUV, you give us a call. That number is 706-863-5800. That's Saturday mornings, 8:05 to 10. And we will love to. You can also ask your question at ccautoshow@gmail.com. And we will either answer it on the air or send you a message back, let you know what it is. And don't forget to watch us live on Facebook if you decide to do that also. We make some funny faces every now and then and do some weird stuff. Okay, another travel tip that we have is it is a good idea to text someone, a friend or your parents or someone that you might know, and let them know what city you're staying in. If you are on and what hotel, if you're on one of those road trips to where you're kind of spur of the moment type deal and you don't have anything definite planned and you just want to travel from place to place, then go ahead and have that person that you can send that to, and they will, if an emergency does come up or for some reason they hadn't heard from you or someone needs to contact you really fast and your cell phone is not doing what it should do, then there would be some method of getting in touch with you.
That's right.
Just
That's a
let
good tip.
someone track where you're going. Now, what you should not do when you do this is it is not a good idea to place all that on social media, Facebook or something, because picture this: your house is sitting there, your big screen television is in there, your other vehicle that you love so much, your little car, your toy car that you enjoy, and your jet ski, and all that is home. And then and then you put something down on Facebook that you're 400 miles away with the entire family, everybody that you know. All right, and so someone reads that and they may decide to go enjoy some of your toys themselves.
Yep,
and do that. So you want to also, when you leave, you want to be sure to set an alarm system if you have that. Put some timers on your lights so it'll look like somebody's there. And then let your neighbors know. Find a trusted neighbor.
Put a mannequin in the window.
Yeah, mannequin in the window, and maybe have it where to move around slightly, stuff like that. And have a neighbor or a friend get your mail and your newspapers so it don't look like everything's all in your yard, or have those cut off for a period of time. And all of these things will prevent a break-in.
Yeah.
May not necessarily completely stop it, but it could do it. Okay, let's give the tech tip quiz again on there, because we did not get an answer to this tech tip quiz before, so we want to do it again. Judy, let me see what we have here. Okay, Stacy owns a 2006 Chrysler Town & Country, and last year she had a very small gas leak in her van. And with that, it caused her swimming pool pump to go bad. All right, a year later.
Okay.
And we did get some answers to that where people called in and gave it a try to answer.
Yeah.
And it was we received one of the top running ones that I thought was kind of neat is one person mentioned that the fuel leak actually went into the ground,
right,
and messed up the water pipe, and that made it to where the pump
something about it picked it up
bad.
Fuel in there or something.
Yeah. So if someone has the answer to why that gas leak caused the swimming pool pump to go bad, they can give us a call. And if I'm not mistaken, one of the answers was fairly close.
Yeah, if I remember right.
That they had. And if we don't get an answer to that, probably within the next
year,
in next little bit, we will more than likely go ahead and give the answer to that. All right. And also, one of the things that I think is kind of neat when someone goes on a trip is I enjoy eating at other places instead of just the ones that are on the map as far as what you look at, your normal fast food places or your normal restaurants.
Like chain type operations.
And the way that you can find the really neat places is if you go visit a city somewhere, somewhere local, or a local person, if you get a chance to talk to that person, find out where a really good local restaurant might be.
Yeah.
And a lot of times you can hear about some really fantastic places to go to, and it'll be a new experience. You won't be just going in the same place that you always go into and doing the same old things that you always normally do. You'll be seeing something, having a different type food.
Yeah. And you called me about one in Charleston one time.
Yeah.
And I mentioned one
exactly.
too. Yep.
Yeah, and I think we ended up going there.
Yeah.
And that's what I enjoy doing, is just going to different places that you can go and experience that particular city, the flavor of that particular city when you're going. And that, a lot of times, that's what makes the traveling part so much fun.
Yep.
Now, another thing that I think is kind of fun that you do, that it's kind of in the same on the same line of that, is looking at the billboards that you see as you're going down the road, and one might say something like free chocolate samples this way, or second friendliest yarn store in the universe, something weird like that.
Yeah.
Maybe on there. But a lot of them you can go to, and you can have some really good times at those little small destination places that you go to.
Okay.
So that's a good idea. Okay, now one thing that I wanted to cover a little bit. The caller a few minutes ago mentioned that she had a bulletin
Right.
on a vehicle. What I was hoping to mention is the difference between a bulletin and a recall.
That's easy. One's free, one's not.
That's true.
Recalls, of course, are free. That's something the manufacturer has determined that there's a high volume of them fail in, obviously that particular
And they normally
vehicle
have
line.
something to do with a safety concern.
Safety concern or well, I guess that's still safety. Yeah, safety or something kind of catastrophic. Bulletins are just kind of a known issue with the vehicles. Sometimes they're out of warranty, sometimes they're still in warranty. And it's a bulletin because quite a few people have necessarily, I guess, complained about it, and so they develop a bulletin and a correction for it. Typically, you have to pay for a bulletin, though.
Yeah. And I've had cases to where someone would call me and they would say, Aaron, I received this recall notice for such and such on my car.
Yeah.
Should I have this done? And I always say yes.
Yeah.
I would recommend having it done. Now, I will tell you, not all dealers, but some use that opportunity to have the car in there and sell other things.
Sell you another one.
Things that are yes, or sell you another car. But if it's things that are needed, it's a good idea to, I always think it's good to listen.
Right.
But you don't want to buy something on the spur of the moment. You want to really give some thought to it. Even if it's in there having something done that's free, it's a good idea to have it done.
Right.
But as a general rule, it is a really good idea to take, when you have a recall, to go ahead and take it back, because there's a lot of things that can happen on a vehicle that will, if it goes unattended to, can cause other problems down the road.
Yeah, for sure.
And in doing that, that can, if you having to spend money on that, you won't be able to spend money
somewhere else
on something else around your house. And I will mention that could be a hint toward the tech tip quiz.
Yeah.
But that's that was the best hint that I could probably give. But go ahead and open those recalls, look at them, and see if you have one that needs to be done.
Yeah.
And also, if you have a vehicle with an unusual problem like that person did, that was a great idea for her to research and say, well, we found a bulletin that has to do with that.
Yeah, or several people with that issue.
Yeah, because that way she'll know it will save her money when she goes in to have that car repaired.
Right.
She won't have to go in, and if it's somebody who don't check the bulletins first, and they spend she spends a lot of money on diagnostics.
Right.
And then in the end they say, oh, we can reprogram your computer. That's what you need.
One thing
You've
too
spent a lot of extra money.
with the recalls, if you call the dealership that you're of course taking it into, and go ahead and schedule it, because that way they can order all the parts in. It kind of speeds up that process, because a lot of times they have to check to see if the vehicle's due for a recall.
Yeah.
But of course they can do that with most of the information on the vehicle, like the VIN number. So that's another tip.
And you're right. Sometimes there are parts that need to be ordered with a recall, and especially if it's a big recall, they may not necessarily have those in stock. And
So you
for
might be out of
instance,
your
on the
vehicle 2
Takata
weeks or whatever.
airbags, there's some of those that are still waiting
That's
for those parts to come in. Okay, time to take a real quick break. When we return, we'll give you some more travel tips, and we'll be answering your phone calls at 706-863-5800. We'll be right back after these messages. All right, be patient. During busy travel times, expect to hit traffic along the way. It may make sense to drive late at night or early in the morning to avoid those rush hours, and you can ensure to get to your destination on time with minimum stress. And make sure you count on stops for refreshments, restroom breaks, and time for fuel stops, and ensure that you don't ride down the road and run low in fuel. And you can kind of time that out on your leaving. In other words, you wouldn't want to hit Atlanta or Dallas freeway traffic
With a low
right
fuel
at
light on?
7:30 to 8 or something like that. Work your time when you're leaving on a trip. Work your times where you won't hit the busy cities at their rush hour time. John Ryan, are you ready to go to the telephones?
I am. Let's go over to Fred.
Let's go for it. Hey, Fred, welcome to the C&C Auto Show. We appreciate the call, and what can we help you with?
Okay, I got a 2003 Chevy 2500 pickup truck,
Mm-hmm.
and I got leaking oil cooler line and one transmission cooler line leaking,
Mm-hmm.
and I got a noise in the front end. Now, is this going to be trouble? It looks like it's a little tight, where the lines go.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, as far as replacing
Yeah.
them, Fred, is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
Yeah, they can be a little bit tricky to get in, mainly because they're, of course, obviously they're shaped to contour different things like the engine and around the belts and all that kind of stuff. So it's a little bit tricky trying to get them in there. It just takes a good bit of patience. There's some brackets you have to pull off, especially the transmission one. They're a little bit trickier because they're, of course, longer, and trying to navigate them through, the same way they came out. The old ones are easy to get out because you can just bend them in every which way, or
or
matter of
cut 'em.
fact, you can
Right.
cut them in half. So yes, they are a little bit tricky. It's best to have the vehicle, jacked up pretty high so that you can, of course, kind of finesse the lines all the way under there. But just take your time. Don't lose your patience with it. It definitely can be done. It is definitely easier with the transmission out. A lot of times we recommend doing that, the lines at the same time, simply because of how many do leak, like you mentioned. And of course, if we have the transmission out, it's kind of a
When they
foolproof thing.
originally put them in, it was just a frame sitting there without an engine, so
Yeah,
of
it
course
was
it
real
wasn't that
easy.
Yeah, I
bad
guess
for
so.
them. But now you got
Right.
you got to work around all that stuff. And like John Ryan mentioned, don't try to bend those new lines because they do not
No.
bend; they just
I-
crimp.
Yep.
Okay, do I need a special tool to get them out of the transmission? I'm looking at them right now in
Yeah.
my garage here.
A
Yeah,
pry
I
bar.
see the way.
Sawzall. No, there is the tool. It's called a Jiffy Tight connector. It's got a little, almost an E-shaped clip, and there's a little tool that slides on the lines, and you put it all the way towards the fitting, and then turn it just a little bit, and of course it releases the lines. I would recommend going ahead and getting the fittings also.
Welcome to the C&C Auto Show. This portion of the
Say
C&C
that
Auto
again?
Show is brought
Hold
to
on
you in
one
part
second.
by
He's got a little issue. They're having some technical problems with some of the boards
Buttons?
there, but I think we about got it worked
Welcome
out.
to the C&C Auto
Yeah, we got it.
Yeah. Okay. Keep going.
So the fittings, we recommend replacing the fittings at the same time, Fred, mainly because this is the easy way to do it. Instead of buying the tool and instead of, doing all that, which of course a technician would have, the fittings can actually leak in the long run anyways.
Welcome to the
So what I would recommend doing is actually unscrewing the fittings from the transmission itself. Then you don't have to worry about the tool or anything. And of course, the new fittings would screw right in the transmission. You pop the lines right in it.
Okay, I see that. Now, one other question. I got a noise in the front end, too, right?
Okay.
And I think it might actually be the pitman arm.
Okay.
I don't know if you could hear this or not. Hold on. If I bang on the center link right now, listen.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not able to hear it, Fred.
You hear that?
No, I couldn't. Now, John Ryan might have.
I didn't.
Yeah. Was it like a rattly noise?
Yeah. Sometimes it almost sounds like it's coming through the steering column, but I can't find anything. But
Does it
underneath
do
the
it as
pitman,
you're riding down the road and you're hitting little small bumps?
You kind of like got to be in a turn. Like
Oh, okay.
if I'm in my backyard on the grass and I'm making a sharp turn,
Uh-huh.
then I could feel it, or
Okay.
or hear it.
Could you tape
And-
the telephone to the front end of the car and take it for a
Hang on,
spin?
hang on a second. I'm gonna make the noise one more time.
Okay.
I heard that.
all,
Yeah.
all I did was tap on the center link, and
Uh-huh.
and you could feel something there loose.
It's definitely possible. What I would get somebody to do, Fred, is get in the vehicle and steer the vehicle just slightly side to side and look for any mechanical play in between the pitman arm or the idler arm. We normally do recommend replacing the pitman arm the idler arm and the idler arm bracket all at the same time, mainly because if one of those items have play, of course it's kind of made the other side do more of the work. So we typically do replace the pitman arm, the idler arm, and then there's actually a bracket that bolts to the frame.
What type car was this again?
A 2500.
Well, no,
0325.
I took the tire. I could shake it back and forth, and you don't actually feel it in the steering. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Was the vehicle how did you jack up the vehicle when you were shaking it side to side?
Oh, I'm one of these lucky people. I got a lift in my garage, so
okay. Well, that's
I'm
what
on
I was
the
going to
lift right
mention.
now.
That particular vehicle, you're right. You won't feel much play when the suspension is in droop, basically with the wheels hanging. If you put
Right.
that vehicle back down on the ground, lay on a creeper,
Okay.
and kind of look at it, and just
Right.
barely steer it side to side, that's when you can really see the play in the steering components on that particular vehicle.
Okay.
All
Well,
right.
thanks for your help, especially on these transmission lines here, because I see what you mean. I can see that threaded nut there.
Yeah, just
by
unscrew
whole
that.
thing.
Yeah, get you an open-end wrench and then just unscrew it and then get 2 new fittings for it. Because you'd be surprised. You put brand new lines in there, and for whatever reason, the old O-ring almost conform to the old line, and then they'll start leaking there. So it's just better to replace them.
Okay, now are these available in aftermarket too, or do I have to go to the dealer?
Yeah,
you know?
no, Napa carries them in the Dorman brand.
Okay,
All right. Hope that helped, Fred.
all right. Thanks a lot for your help.
Thanks.
Thank you. And John Ron, we have a problem. We have some patient callers that have been holding for a period of time, but we are out of time for this particular segment, and we will be asking John, who will be the very next up, if he would either hold or call back for the second segment, because we really do want to answer his question or hear a comment, whichever one it might be. But for right now, we're just about out of time. The show, we've had some great questions, and also we have given some great tips having to do with travel tips. And of course, we want to remind everyone, if they're planning their trip, to make sure that they do a little maintenance before they go, and do a little prep work before you get in the car with the family to take off on that road trip that you might be going on. And again, the time clock is on E, and we need to pull over for now, but we'll be back on the road in no time. I'm Aaron Clements with co-host John Ryan Mooney, and our show producers are Dominic Frito, Sandy Klein, and our technical engineer is Zach Llewellyn. And we would all like to say thank you to all of you that tuned in, logged in, and especially those that called in to ride with us on the C&C Auto Show.
My pappy said, son, you're going to drive me to drinking if you don't stop driving that hot rod Lincoln. Have you heard the story of the hot rod race where the Fords and Lincolns was setting the pace? That story is true.
And hello, all of you wonderful car lovers. Welcome to the C&C Auto Show, and I am Aaron Clements.
I'm John Ryan.
And our goal is to give you some great information to make your car,
learned that
truck, or
early.
My pappy
SUV
said-
safer, more dependable, and to make it last longer for less money and less hassle. And we want to say thank you to all of you that tuned in or logged in, and we are here to take your phone calls at 706-863-5800. You can watch us live on Facebook, Saturday mornings, 8:05 to 10 Eastern. Email your question to ccautoshow@gmail.com anytime, and you can learn more about your car, this show, or you can also find a good shop all at ccautoshow.com. We do want to welcome WBQO 93.7 FM in Brunswick, Georgia, and we thank all of you for jumping in and riding with the C&C Auto Show. And this show is brought to you in part by Napa Heating and Cooling Systems and NGK Spark Plugs. And John Ryan, are we ready to roll?
I am. Hope you are.
Yeah, we're going to have a great show. It's going to have to do with travel tips and plus answering a lot of questions. And if you're ready, we'll go straight to the phones.
I think it's only fair if we go to John.
I think that'd be great. John, welcome to the show, and what could we help you with? Hello, John.
Tip, I guess.
Yes, sir. We
got a
got
little-
you.
Okay. I got a little tip for traveling.
Mm-hmm.
Two things. Number one, always try to plan your trips so you have plenty of time so you don't have to speed and rush and everything.
Yes.
And
big time.
Number two, I always carry a hard copy map with me because, you can go from here to the moon with your car navigation, and you might be 30 miles from something you've always wanted to see, and you'll never know it. So I always carry a hard copy map.
Or John, what happens if that GPS malfunction didn't work?
That's exactly. I've hit places. One about 40 miles from Atlanta, mine goes squirrely. So yeah, a hard copy map is always good to have.
Good tip.
Those are getting harder and harder to find, though, John. But they're still there at certain places you can go. But that is a great idea. And I've thought it apart on if GPS was to fail, but I didn't think about what you mentioned, John, is to be able to just look at a whole area and say, I've never been to that city, or I heard so and so is there.
Right.
I might just stop by there. So that is a great tip right there. I like it.
Yeah, you might pass the world's largest ketchup bottle and never know it.
We might have to find that.
Yep. Largest ball of twine.
Aaron Clements Hall of Fame.
John, thank you very much for that tip. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. And again, what's good about that is we're talking about those springtime trips now.
Mm-hmm.
Those are some of the best trips that you can make. Are you ready to go to the calls?
I am. Let's go to Tony.
Let's do it. Hey, Tony, welcome to the C&C Auto Show, and what can we help you with?
Morning, guys. I want to take a shot at the tech quiz.
Whoa, do you mind if I read that quiz one time?
What's he going to say, no?
Certainly.
He might. You never know. All right, here we go. Stacy owns a 2006 Chrysler Town and Country van. Last year, she had a very small gas leak on her van, and it caused her swimming pool pump to go bad this year. What happened?
All right, I'm going to say that the fuel leaked into the water. Mixing with the chlorine, oxidizing, tearing up the pump when it pumped it through the pump.
Yeah, and we're going to have to do something in reverse. We forgot to do something with you, Tony.
Yeah, because he might even change his answer.
And we got to take care of this. All right, go ahead. All right, Tony, that is not the answer, but I'm going to go ahead and give a couple of quick hints here. The a gas leak is not always a gas leak.
Well, it could be vapor.
Ooh, wow. John Ryan, there might be something to work with here. What do you think?
Yeah.
Yeah, all right. What kind of vapor could leak out of a vehicle?
Exhaust.
Oh, well, that's a vapor, yeah. But what other vapor?
What is gas vapor?
Yeah, yeah. What other gas vapor? What other gas can leak out? All right, we're going. We tried, Tony. We really tried.
I know it. Thanks. Thanks, guys.
Thank you,
Good
Tony.
show.
Okay. But that does give a few hints there.
It does.
And I'm gonna go ahead and throw one more out there. If you had a gas leak on your car, and you didn't have it repaired,
mm-hmm.
and that made it to where you had to spend money on it instead of something else.
Okay.
So all of these are just wild hints that we like to give.
Every bit of it's wild.
Yeah. Okay. Now, one of the things that we do want to mention having to do with travel,
mm-hmm.
and that has to do with the way that you pack your car. It's important to put what you need in the car, but it's also important as you're packing your vehicle, you want to put the things that you will need possibly on the road,
right,
in places to where you can get to that without having to take everything else out of your car.
For sure.
To get in there. And also, you don't want to carry unnecessary items on there. You know that if you're going to certain places, high probability you may or may not get to play golf.
Right.
All right. And now, if you even might get to play, but don't just carry the clubs just because you get to look at them.
That's right.
They're not going. Just looking at them is not going to help.
Some people, they don't come out of the car that way.
Yeah, that's true. They leave them in there all the time. So you want to not carry stuff that's a problem, and you want to if you plan to carry a large amount, you want to find out what weight your vehicle can carry. You don't want to overload it. And normally there's a little play card inside the driver's door jamb, and it gives the load rating, and that includes all the passengers and cargo and all that. And you also want to keep in mind that your fuel economy goes down a little bit when you do that. And on those rooftop boxes, only fill those with the light items. If you put too much weight on a rooftop, it can make it to where the car is more prone to roll.
Don't forget, too, the overall height. Don't just pull into a garage and forget that it's up there.
That does happen.
And we got a few minutes left. Let's go to Don real quick.
Hey, Don, welcome to the C&C Auto Show, and what can we help you with?
I wanted to try the tech tip.
Whoa. Yoda said there is no try. There is do or don't do. So, Don, you are all over the stage. Be still, man. All right. What's the answer?
All right. I believe she had a refrigerant leak on her air conditioning system on her car.
Whoa.
She used the money that she normally does for pool maintenance to repair her car air conditioner. And being that she didn't do the pool maintenance, her pool pump went out the next year.
What do you think, John Ryan?
I think I have no clue what the answer is either.
All right. Let me give the answer, and you let me know if it looks like Don's the winner before you do the whole deal.
Yeah.
All right, here it is. The gas that was leaking out of Stacy's 06 Chrysler Town and Country was, in fact, R134A refrigerant.
So he gets this.
Okay, you get a touch.
Okay.
Well, you get a touch. That's a teaser, Don. All right, now it also carries the oil that keeps that compressor lubricated.
Right.
Through there. So if you're low in refrigerant, you're also low in oil. That's
Which,
almost,
of course, Don knew that. So.
That's like running your engine low in oil.
Right.
Okay, now, as the AC stopped cooling, the compressor was running without proper lubrication, and this caused the compressor to just fail.
Mm-hmm.
So she had planned to, in the fall, she had planned to buy a swimming pool cover.
Gotcha.
But instead, she had to have a compressor job on her car, and they performed that on her van. And during the winter, the filter clogged up with leaves, and she didn't change her filter because she didn't think about it. So that starved the pump for water.
Yep.
And when you starve your swimming pool pump for water, the pump burns up. Yeah. So she burned her pump up. And so this is an example of how not doing the maintenance on different items can have a domino effect. And it can just one thing right after another can burn up.
I think he got it.
Yeah, I think he was all over that one.
For sure.
Don, we're really proud, man.
Yeah, you did it.
Yeah, you did. You are the winner of the Tech Tip Quiz, and you can come by. You can stay on the line. They'll write all of your information down, and we will make sure that you get all of your prizes.
All right, I certainly appreciate it.
Well, we appreciate it very much, and congratulations, man. You are the winner. Okay, time to take a real quick break, and when we return, we'll tell you some prep that you can do on a road trip that will save you some stress. That and a lot more as soon as we return with the C&C Auto Show.
There's a voice in my head that drives my heel. It's my baby calling, says I need you here.
And we are officially back with you with the C&C.
And on.
The C&C Auto Show, and this segment is brought to you by Napa Heating and Cooling Systems. We trust Napa Heating and Cooling System products, and you should too. They're great products, work well, fit well, last a long time. Just we love them. Okay, the number to call, 706-863-5800. That's Saturday mornings, 8:05 to 10. And a good thing that you can do is bring a spare tire, or at least make sure that the spare tire that you have is in good condition before going on a trip. So many times people look their car over, check their lights, check their tires on the car that they can see.
Yeah.
And works well, but they forget about the spare tire. And if the spare has a flat and you're in the middle of nowhere, that spare tire could come in really good.
Sure.
So be
Another
sure.
thing too is if you're towing.
Yeah.
Definitely make sure you have a spare for your
great
trailer, whatever it may
right
be.
there too. That's
especially if it's a single axle trailer.
Yeah, wonderful idea right there to make sure that you carry that also. You ready to go to the calls?
Yeah, let's go over to Margot.
Hello, Margot, and welcome to the C&C Auto Show. And what can we help you with?
Good morning. I was just thinking about your spare tire thing while I was on the phone. might want to also make sure you know how to get the spare tire out if you've got one of those that's stored up underneath, like a pickup truck bed or up underneath a car.
Yeah.
Or worse, a Toyota Sienna.
Yeah, some of those spare tires can be very, very tough to
Tricky.
get out of
We'll
a
call it
car.
tricky.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have been stranded and went through that process with the tire underneath the minivan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then too, Margo, that's a great point because some of, like, for instance, a Town and Country, now they actually have, they say it's an upgraded kit. I would still personally rather a spare tire, but now they have a kit with a compressor that has the chemical slime in it so that it's for smaller leaks. You know, you could just air it back up, but still, yeah, I mean, I guess their logic behind it is if somebody has a flat, chances are they're going to call a AAA or one of the service centers to, you know, actually tow it. So, you know, not having a spare tire is kind of an odd thing for me. I'd still rather be able to have the option of changing the tire.
Oh, and one more little tip that goes along with that, Margo, is being sure that if your vehicle has any lock-and lugs on the car anywhere, make sure that you have that key to that special lock and lug because that can mess you up also.
Yep.
Yes. Well, the original reason I called was you were mentioning maps, and I want to throw these quick out there. Here's two quick free sources of maps. One is that if you're out driving on vacation, you're probably going to hit an interstate and swing by one of those visitor centers at either end of the state boundary.
Yeah.
You get lots of good information in there, and they always hand out free maps. Another one is another free source is in the hotel for those that still have a phone book. There's a map there in the front that's real simplified and find your way around. And then here's the last one, and I like this one best of all. You can always find maps at a truck stop.
Wow. Yes.
How about that?
And I especially love the trucker maps, because the Atlas, because right about this time of year, they're about half price or something, and they've got so much additional information in them that you'd never think.
That is really
that's
neat.
a good tip.
We're getting some wonderful ideas here that go. So your John's tip with the getting the maps and your tips on where to get the maps a lot of times
Where to
at no
find them,
charge.
yeah.
And Margo, one other thing come to mind when you were talking about the little maps at the hotels. Also, the hotels, it's a good idea to visit the little center that they have with all the things that you can do in certain cities. I always love looking at those because you may decide to go zip lining or tubing or something while you're there, and you can get all that information right there at the hotel.
And off of that idea, at the desk, they usually have a map you can get from them if you ask them, and also they can also tell you about specials. They sometimes can hand out coupons or
another great tip.
Off the price.
I love it. Fantastic.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Hey, Margo, you were great. Thank you. Okay, the number to call, 706-863-5800. John Ryan, where are we going to?
Let's go over to Chris.
Hello, Chris, and welcome to the C&C Auto Show. What can we help you with?
Morning, guys. I have a 2010 Ford Fusion, and about 2 months ago, I had an engine code come up, and it was a P04455, which was an evaporative emission system leak, and it says it's either a gross leak or no flow, and if I understood it right, it's basically the sensor that tells me whether or not my vent in the fuel tank is properly functioning. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. That system it uses two different ways of checking it. It checks it for vacuum as far as the fuel tank pressure, and then it actually closes the vent and watches it on the fuel tank pressure side of it also.
Okay, so this is the problem because I'm used to driving old vehicles, and that's normally not something that bothers me.
Right.
But so I let it ride. Well, here in the last couple of weeks, when I fill up with fuel, starting the car, it almost won't start. It'll have to sit and I'll start it, and it'll run through the ignition cycle once or twice, and then it'll finally get fuel pressure and start.
Right.
Can that system be affecting that, or?
It can, Chris. What you're probably experiencing is just like that code said. It's either a leak or, possibly a sensor issue. You probably have a leak. It probably is always in a state of vacuum, the actual tank itself, and the reason for that being is the purge solenoid that actually pulls the vapors from the tank is probably stuck open. What happens is, keep in mind that valve or that solenoid is stuck open, so as your filling up the car, it's pumping raw fuel vapors, and depending on if you fill it all the way up, it can actually pump raw fuel straight into the engine. And when you go to crank it up, it's basically flooded out like an old carbureted vehicle. So, of course, you cycle the key a few times. It uses up what fuel's in there, and, of course, it clears out and then drives just fine.
That makes sense. The only other thing I tried is I tried against better judgment filling it while it was running just to see if it did the same thing. Would that system do the same thing?
It would.
Because it's just dumping raw fuel? Okay.
Exactly. Yes, sir.
All right. Sounds good.
The
I
good thing is
appreciate your help.
that's a very simple fix and relatively inexpensive.
That's even better to hear.
Chris, there's actually we were just talking about this on a break. There's actually a recall on your vehicle. Have you heard about that?
I think it was an airbag recall. I got the letter not too long ago.
Dominic, what years was it? I think it's the steering wheel loosens up and comes off.
The steering wheel was 14 to 18, so his is the older model.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Well, just keep an eye on your steering wheel. Don't let it fall off.
Yeah, with those with the steering wheel, I don't know if I'd worry about that one. Just
nah,
not a big deal.
Who cares? All right, Chris. We hope that helped.
Thank you, guys.
All right.
Thank you very much. And it is time for a real quick break. When we return, we will have more great travel tips, and we will be going to Keith and lots of other callers, and we will be right back after these messages.
Now his guitar's Cadillac, hillbilly music, lonely, lonely streets that I call home.
And we would like to welcome you back to the C&C Auto Show. The number to call with your automotive question is 706-863-5800. That's Saturday mornings, 8:05 to 10. And we heard from Margot, mentioned about the maps and places to get maps. We heard from John about getting maps. But also we do want to mention that it is still a good idea to have a really good GPS navigation system in your car. Sometimes people use their phone. Sometimes they have a separate GPS system somewhere on the vehicle, and some it's made into the vehicle, which is really good. But a lot of times they can give you different restaurants and gas stations if you need it, and some have the traffic reports, which is really neat to have and can divert your traffic. So a good navigation system can save you a lot of stress on a trip. Where we're going?
Let's go over to Keith.
Hello, Keith, and welcome to the C&C Auto Show. What can we help you with?
Yes, I have a 2007 GMC Canyon, and sometimes when I come out in the morning or after I've been somewhere, the truck won't start, and I've been told that it's the fuel pump, but like maybe it'll do it one time, and then you could wait. It might wait and do it like a month later or 2 months later. So it's not a consistent problem. And, usually when you take it to a shop, they want it to be doing the problem when they do it, when it's doing it so that they can, but it's not consistently not cranking.
Keith, you sound like a really nice, calm person. A lot of people, you just sense that when their car didn't start, that they would have been hitting the steering wheel and stomping their feet on the floor. And things like that, but you sound like you would go out there and it wouldn't crank, and you would just say, my car won't crank. Is that correct, or am I wrong?
Yes, and what it does is very strange too, is if I sit there about 15 minutes, then it'll crank up.
And you sit there calmly, don't you?
Yes, sir.
Oh, that is really neat.
Keith,
you're gonna live a long time, Keith. You know that, because you don't have the high blood pressure and all the other stuff that goes along with being impatient. That's good.
Keith, I'm going to solve your problem for you. No doubt fuel pumps can be very intermittent like that, mainly because they're electric motor. A lot of times they'll fall on a bad spot in the armature, and, of course, it won't turn on, basically. But your vehicle and what you've described is more of a security problem. That particular vehicle, it doesn't have a chipped key. Obviously, you've seen the key before. It doesn't have a chip in the key, but it actually has a pass lock sensor that's in the ignition lock cylinder housing. And what happens is you put the key in there, you go to crank it up, and it's, of course, spins over. but it won't run because
thinks it's being stolen.
Yeah, it thinks it's being stolen, or it thinks it's the wrong key or something like that. And so it puts it in lockout mode, and lockout mode normally lasts about 10 minutes. And of course, you go to crank it up again, it starts. That's the reason why it's so intermittent also, is because 9 times out of 10, it sees the key, it agrees with the key, and it cranks up. Well, that other 1% of when it disagrees, and says that the key is not valid, it will actually turn the security system on, not cause it to crank up. One neat thing about that is that particular car or truck actually stores a history code in the BCM for the security system. That's not something that you're going to be able to access, with a tool like one of the over-the-counter type.
And it won't cause the light to stay on.
It won't cause any light to stay on or anything like that, because it just simply thinks it's the wrong key. It doesn't necessarily think anything's wrong. It just doesn't agree with the key. So what needs to be done is a test, a little bit of diagnostics to see if the code's in there for theft enabled. And a technician would typically test the sensor every time you put the key in. It should say valid, and it actually gives a resistance reading of every time you cycle the key from, of course, off to start. And a technician would monitor those. And you can actually, on that particular vehicle, you can actually wiggle the key and change the resistance when that ignition switch actually gets some wear in it. So high probability of an issue with the security system on that one. So don't put a fuel pump in it.
Okay. Yeah, that's a little more expensive. Probably.
It is, absolutely, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Keith,
then,
now you can calmly have your car fixed, and see how being calm and not rushing just pays off.
It does.
Yeah.
And Keith, one other tip is if you go to this vehicle the next time and it won't start, if you leave that key on for 10 minutes, it actually, like physically on to the run position or the start position, of course the security system actually relearns itself also. It has a 10-minute pass lock relearn.
Okay. Great.
All right. Well, we hope that helps.
All right. And also, one of my tire pressure monitors is thing, and they say that's about an $80 fix.
Does the message say service tire pressure monitor or low tire pressure?
Service tire pressure
Does say
monitor.
Service. There is on that particular vehicle. You can actually kind of determine which one it is. You put it in TPMS learn mode, and you actually let the air out of all the tires, and the horn will chirp when it detects a tire pressure being lowered. And say if you go to 1 and you lower it and lower it, and it never detects, the horn never chirps to detect it, that would be your bad sensor. Those sensors, they can range, up to there. Some of them, some vehicles you can get up to the $100 range. Yeah. Some you can get a little bit less. It just kind of depends.
80 sounds like a fairly low price for a sensor.
Right, yeah.
Actually, yeah.
Okay. Well, I appreciate your information that you've given me.
All right.
Great call, Keith. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Number to call, 706-863-5800 if you have a question about your car, truck, or SUV. And that's Saturday mornings, 8:05 to 10. John Ryan, where will we be going?
Next up's JD.
Hey, JD. Welcome to
morning,
the
gentlemen.
C&C Auto Show. And what can we help you with?
I'm sorry, I didn't get your last question.
Oh, what can we help you with today?
Thank you very much. This may be a little more generic than exactly my specific car, but I have a 2001 Volkswagen Beetle that's got some, I want to say, minor transmission slippage in the forward gears.
Okay.
And I've been advised by several people that your best bet on this type car, and how come, because it's so expensive, just run it until it quits. And I was actually out driving around this morning, amazed even in the cold weather that it seemed to be doing pretty decently. So my question is, in talking to people, I think some pretty smart folks, I said, well, what if the fluid level's low? And they said, well, this one doesn't have a dipstick, so it's kind of hard to figure out how much fluid it's got in it. But Volkswagen says it's good for life. They don't recommend that you do anything with it. Well, I've asked the question. I said, well, if we could change the fluid out and put brand new fluid in there, is there a chance that might help the transmission? And I was told, and I think the people know what they're talking about, it's better to leave it alone than put new fluid in it. What say you?
JD, how many miles are on it?
Well, it has 143, but in 2010 somebody did something like either put in a rebuilt or a used transmission.
Okay.
So it's probably got about My best guess is about 60,000 on whatever they put in there.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, I mean, you're right as far as, of course, the dipstick or the lack thereof dipstick. It does have a little bit of a process to check the fluid. It has a transmission plug, and it has a little spout inside that, of course, if the fluid is full, when you take the plug out, it will drip out a little bit. If it's empty, nothing comes out.
And it has to be checked at a specific
temperature. That's correct.
Right.
Now, what you're describing, of course, that's obviously common of a transmission with a little bit of wear and tear on it. But as far as the 140,000 mile interval never being serviced, and then, of course, rebuilt possibly being 60, I would say absolutely change the fluid. Where we start to worry about transmission fluids, we used to worry about them at 100,000, but so many things have changed since then. And now we don't really worry about them to the 225, 250 range if they've never been serviced before. That particular vehicle, there is no way to flush the transmission like what we would normally recommend for most vehicles because it doesn't have cooler lines.
Right.
There's a process of what a technician would do is drain the fluid itself, fill it back up, drive it, meet the temperature specification that Aaron's talking about to check the fluid, and then drain it, fill it, and do that probably about 3 times depending on how much it holds. I believe it holds like 9 quarts, on a dry fill. So as long as they got 9 quarts out, the chances of them getting all the fluids pretty high. You're kind of in the boat to where right now, if you suspect it has 60,000 miles on it, that's great. I don't think any damage would be done. I don't think it'd be money wasted. I think you'd probably gain some from it. But one thing I wanted to mention to you is that transmission is electronically controlled and it can actually be reset. It has coding adaptations that allow the computer to almost relearn the transmissions. For instance, if a 16-year-old drove it all its life, it would have higher shift points and all that, versus you driving it, that may drive it a little bit easier. And a technician could go in there and do the fluid service and reset the transmission. And, there's a probability that you could get a lot more mileage out of it and take care of your issue.
Mm-hmm. Just ballpark figure on this resetting the transmission. That's something y'all could do at your shop?
Yeah, we can. The trans service normally runs, and this is kind of amongst many other shops because, of course, they're pretty close to the same. Somewhere in the 225 range. Resetting the transmission normally kind of goes with that particular service. So that's kind of the price range you're looking at.
All right. One final thing I'm just going to reiterate. So, the thing, one of the transmission people that
JD, we actually have to take a quick break. Would you mind holding?
Oh, sure, I'd be glad to.
All right.
Quick break. We'll be right back after this. And we do welcome you back to the C&C Auto Show. And if you have a question about your car, truck, or SUV, give us a call. That number 706-863-5800. That's Saturday mornings, 8:05 to 10. And this segment is brought to you by NGK Spark Plugs. Your kids will never remember that first television show that they watched, but they will always remember helping Dad install the NGK Spark Plugs. I think that's kind of neat. Okay, quick tip, get a gas card. You're going to be buying a lot of fuel, and you can translate into a lot of free fuel points, cash back on hotels, and discounted groceries. I believe in those reward cards. John Ryan, we ready to go back to JD?
Yep, got him on the line.
Hello, JD. We appreciate you holding during the break, and we were talking about your car. Update us again.
Yes, you had just gone through the thing about resetting the transmission electronic shift points, that sort of thing, plus servicing the fluid. And you gave me a ballpark. Can I just ask, would that include that expensive fluid, or would that be an addition to?
Generally, because that vehicle doesn't take quite the same amount of fluid as most of our services, that still would be pretty close to it because of the increase in fluid cost.
But that may vary. We always mention to anyone, anytime we give an estimate on the phone, and this includes. We try to also include if someone's going somewhere different.
Especially on the radio show,
that it varies a lot of times. And you are right. There's some fluids that is much more expensive than others. But like John Ryan mentioned, some vehicles hold. We put like a normal transmission flush we would be putting 9 to 12 quarts in there.
Right.
Whereas with this one, it wouldn't take near that much because you wouldn't be necessarily feeling it. But it could vary depending on how dirty the fluid is, if they have to take it in and out more times. So
right.
It'll vary a little bit.
Right. The process of doing this, is that a long hour process, or leave it overnight sort of deal, or how does that work?
Mainly because you have an issue with yours. I would say try and drop it off, just simply because, of course, technicians like to spend the time with it, kind of get a feel for what the transmission's doing. A normal transmission service, one that doesn't have any issues, could be probably in the 2-hour range by the time it's all hooked up, said, done, test drove, all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. But leaving that one a half a day would be good.
Yep.
All right. Just one last thing. Is it a general rule, like in American cars, like one person told me, said if you're having trouble, if you change out the fluid, you might cause yourself more trouble? Have you ever heard that?
We have years ago, and that was true. Of course, we always mention that the transmission service, the way the service is done now versus then was different. Back then, basically what you were doing is taking the pan down, pulling the filter out, putting new filter in there, putting the pan back on, filling the transmission up. Well, you probably put about 5 new quarts in there to the 10 old that was in there. So it's kind of like adding just a little bit more soap to dirty dishwasher. All right, I quit.
That's easy for you to say.
Yeah. So the analogy there is, you're not really you're not getting all the fluid out. Now, today's service, of course, it has a fluid exchanger, and of course the machine pulls all the fluid out, pumps all the new fluid in. So it's just a difference in service. Now, that's what we were talking about, the mileage interval. Years ago, it used to be 100,000 miles, don't touch it, but now it's closer to the 225, somewhere in there. Just because transmissions are built better, the service that we perform on them is a lot better than what we used to.
But the first step would be a technician to drive it and then take the plug out, look at the fluid, and then make a decision from there.
Yeah, because if the technician drives and it's slipping, very badly, and they pull the plug out and the fluid is, dark as engine oil, of course, that's a different case scenario.
Exactly.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen. I feel like a doctor who's actually taken a lot of time with me this morning. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Well, that's because we appreciate you calling. Thank you, JD.
All right.
Number to call, 706-863-5800. That's Saturday mornings, 8:05 to 10. And John Ryan, who will we be talking to?
Let's go to Carolyn.
Hello, Carolyn, and welcome to the show. What can we help you with?
I need some information.
We're ready.
I have a Mazda Speed 6, 2007, that just turned over 50,000 miles, and so I need a 50,000 mile tune-up.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a good friend who is a certified mechanic for one of the local Ford dealerships.
Mm-hmm.
Would I be okay to take this Mazda to him to get the tune-up done, or is this a Mazda-specific thing that needs to be done?
That's a great question. Actually, that vehicle has a lot of Ford characteristics.
Part Ford.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, so in your, the main thing is just what you said, a technician that's certified and knows what they're doing. Vehicles, of course, there's a little bit of shade of gray to this, but vehicles are very similar.
Carolyn, what the vehicles have done over the years is they've melted together.
Yep.
Yeah, and so you might raise a Mazda and see a Ford engine.
Yeah, like if you pop a Jaguar's hood, you're looking at a Ford V8.
Yeah, Ford V8.
Yeah.
And
I
there's
had
so many
a Mustang
things.
one time that had a Mazda engine.
Yeah.
There you go.
So they're
I think
melting
it sat
together.
Sideways. It was
And what's happened now is a lot of technicians have needed to learn the basics of how all the mechanical systems work. For instance, the electrical systems, that the electricity is only going to work one way. Now, it may go through different systems on one car as opposed to another car, and the mechanical items are going to work the same way. But a technician that's trained is trained to look at those as opposed to the way some technicians are. They're used to one car and they only get to replace one. I mean, if a blue car comes in and it had a hiccup at 50, they'll consider every blue car that comes in that has a hiccup at 50 the same part.
Pattern failures.
But a good technician is trained in everything, and so
and
I would
Carolyn,
feel
just
good.
to ease your mind a little bit, of course, 99% of dealerships have a used car department. Well, all those used cars go through that system too. So I mean, they don't just specifically work on Fords. So now, no doubt they do have specific technicians that do used cars and whatnot. But generally, a technician, if they can work on one, they can work on the other. And again, there's a shade of gray. They might not work on a Land Rover with a communication problem, but generally they're kind of the same creatures.
Yeah.
Well, he's always done the, all the work on my boat. I've got a boat that's got a Ford 351 in it.
Oh, if he does a boat, he's good then.
Yeah, he can do it.
Oh, he's good. Yeah. And I trust him, and that's the main thing, is I trust him, and I don't
is key.
know these other people.
That's right.
Yeah, and if you do that with that trust, that does everything, because that way if that technician is looking at something and he feels in any way that you could get a better job with somebody else doing it, my guess is that person would tell you that and do
it's
it.
kind of along the same lines of what we do. Of course, obviously, we have a shop. I mean, it operates, but we're trying to figure out what's best for everybody, just like you. You know, it sounds like you've got somebody that works for you and does a good job. So, of course, that's exactly what we want for you.
But that word that you just said is the key to getting a good job or having that relationship between the person working on the car and the person owning it or driving it is trust.
You want the technician that you have working on your vehicle, you want them to make the decision just like you would.
Yeah, and you want them to explain everything to where you understand it too, where you'll know what he's doing and you feel good about what he's doing.
Right.
Yeah. Well, it's an awesome little car, and I love it, but and it does need a tune-up after 50,000 miles.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
In, what is this, 13 years?
So it's ready.
That's pretty bad.
No, that's pretty good.
My little Mazda's older than that, so don't worry.
And has more mileage, doesn't it?
I love it.
Yeah.
I've never had any trouble with it. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, that's great. Carol,
thanks
for
the call. Never had
too.
any trouble with it except a lead foot.
Yeah. That will do it.
Well, we appreciate the call.
Thank you
Hope that
so
helped.
much.
All right, Aaron.
All right, Carolyn. Okay, John Ryan, I can't believe it, man. We are just about out of time. This hour went so quick.
Yeah, it did.
We have to pull over, but we'll be back on the road in no time. And I'm Aaron Clements with co-host John Ryan Mooney. Our show producers are Dominic Frito, Sandy Klein, technical engineer is Zach Llewellyn. And we would all like to say thank you to all of you that tuned in, logged in, and especially those that called in to ride with us on the C&C Auto Show.